For 15 years, Omnivision Security Solutions had been my home. I was more than just a senior security analyst. I was the architect of its fortress. I had designed and maintained the core biometric authentication system that protected every single client's data. Our system was a ghost in the machine. It was silent, it was invisible, and it was unbreakable. My name is Marcus Thorne. At 52, I had more gray in my beard than in my hair, and my hands, though more accustomed to a keyboard than a circuit board these days, still knew the architecture of our platform by heart. I didn't build it for show. I built it to last. I built it for reliability, for speed, and for a level of security that no off-the-shelf product could ever replicate. It was a finely tuned machine, a work of art in the world of high-stakes cybersecurity. It was my legacy. But a legacy, I was about to learn, means nothing to a man who only sees a bottom line and a quarterly report. That man was Simon Keller, the new chief product officer. He had the kind of polished, slick look that seemed to come straight from a tech startup catalog, a tailored suit, a neatly trimmed beard, and a vocabulary overflowing with words like synergy, disruption, and paradigm shift. He was hired to modernize Omnivision, to take us from being an industry staple to an industry leader. He had been with the company for a mere 6 months, and in that time, he had spoken to me exactly 3 times. Each conversation was a brief, dismissive encounter where he would nod and smile, his eyes glazing over as I spoke about data integrity or threat modeling. To him, I was an anachronism, a relic from a past that was holding his vision back. The first hint of trouble came when he held a company-wide meeting, a bombastic affair filled with flashy graphics and bold promises. He unveiled his grand plan, to replace my system with a new, AI-driven security platform called Aegis 7.0. He spoke of its machine learning capabilities, its proactive threat detection, and its dynamic, intuitive user interface. The words were like a foreign language to me. My system was quiet. It worked. Aegis 7.0 was loud. It was all flash and no substance. I sat in the back of the auditorium, my gut churning with a familiar dread. I knew what this meant. He wasn't just replacing my system. He was replacing me. The day he summoned me to his office was a crisp Tuesday. The kind of day that's perfect for a new beginning, or a brutal end. His office was a testament to his personality, minimalist furniture, abstract art, a massive window with a panoramic view of the Austin skyline. The contrast to my own cluttered, messy desk, buried in stacks of documents and half-empty coffee cups, was stark. He motioned for me to sit in a chrome chair that was cold to the touch. He didn't offer me coffee. He didn't offer me a handshake. He just sat back, a cool, detached smile on his face. "Marcus," he began, his voice smooth and controlled. "I want to thank you for your years of service. You've been an integral part of this company's journey, a real pillar of the old guard." The words felt like a eulogy. I already knew what was coming. But as you know, our industry is evolving. We need to embrace the future, to move into the cloud, to leverage the power of AI. Your system, while functional, just doesn't align with our new strategic vision. The words hit me like a physical blow. Functional. He called 15 years of my life's work functional. It was a dismissal so casual, so profound, that it felt like a slap in the face. I sat there, my hands clasped in my lap, trying to control the surge of anger. "Simon, my system is more than functional. It's the very reason our clients trust us. It has a zero-breach record for a decade. The new system, Aegis 7.0, it's flashy, but it's an untested product. The vulnerabilities in its codebase alone are significant. I've gone over the specs, and I can tell you right now it's not secure." I spoke with the quiet conviction of a man who knows his craft. I wasn't trying to save my job. I was trying to save my company from a catastrophic mistake. Simon's smile didn't falter. It just widened slightly. "Marcus, I appreciate your passion, but we've done our due diligence. The vendor has provided us with a comprehensive security audit. The CEO is fully on board. We're moving forward. And as we transition, your role, well, your skill set simply won't be required. We're moving towards a hands-off, automated approach. We won't need someone to be the keeper of the keys anymore. We will be terminating your employment, effective immediately. Your final severance package will be delivered to you via email. Security will escort you out. We've already packed your things." The last sentence was a gut punch. It wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't even a discussion. It was a cold, calculated execution. They had been planning this for a while. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. They hadn't just fired me. They had erased me. They had moved on before I had even been told. I looked at Simon's smug face, at the clean lines of his office, at the city skyline he claimed to represent. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt a sense of clarity. A calm, quiet resolve settled over me. He had taken my job, but he hadn't taken my soul. He had taken my legacy, but he hadn't taken my knowledge. He had given me a severance package, but he had also given me something far more valuable, a chance to be free. I stood up, my posture straight, my head held high. I understand, I said, my voice steady. I didn't plead. I didn't argue. I didn't even look at him. I just walked out of his office. I walked past the desk where my things were already packed into a cardboard box. I saw Chloe, my closest friend in the office, standing a few feet away, her face a mask of shock and sympathy. She gave me a small, sad nod. I didn't stop. I kept walking. I walked past the security guards who were waiting to escort me out. I didn't need an escort. I knew this building better than they did. I walked out into the Texas sun, a free man. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't have a destination. I didn't have a boss. I didn't have a purpose. I just had the box of my things and a head filled with a decade and a half of knowledge that no one else had. I knew the vulnerabilities of Aegis 7.0. I knew its inherent flaws. And I knew with an unshakable certainty that it was destined to fail. I just didn't know when. But I was patient. My system had been my fortress. And now my knowledge would be my weapon. The game was over. A new one was about to begin. And this time, I was playing by my own rules. The world was about to see what happens when you underestimate a man who builds systems to last. The 5 weeks that followed were an exercise in learning to be still. For a man who had lived and breathed the pulse of a major corporation for 15 years, the sudden silence was deafening. My mornings, once a frantic blur of emails and caffeine, were now a slow, deliberate rhythm of strong coffee and a dog walk. I found a quiet rhythm in my new life. I started an independent consultancy, a small operation called Thorn Analytics. The name was simple, direct, and gave me a sense of purpose. I had a few small clients, mostly local businesses who needed help with their basic network security. The work was fulfilling, but it wasn't the high-stakes world I had come from. It was a quiet existence, a calm after the storm. But the storm was still brewing. I kept a close eye on OmniVision, not out of bitterness, but out of a morbid curiosity. I'd read every press release, every news article, every social media post about their big transition to Aegis 7.0. Simon Keller was everywhere. His face was plastered on industry magazines, his voice echoed in webinars, his words, all empty promises and corporate jargon, were the new gospel. He was lauded as a visionary, a disruptor, a genius who was dragging OmniVision into the 21st century. He was also a fool. I knew the problems with Aegis 7.0 from my brief look at the specs. Its AI-driven system was a black box. You fed it data, and it spat out results without ever telling you how it got there. It was built on a flawed architecture, a flimsy foundation of open-source components cobbled together. I knew the vulnerabilities in its codebase. I knew the ways it could be bypassed. But no one at OmniVision knew. And now, no one was there to tell them. My system had been built from the ground up, every line of code meticulously crafted by my own hands. I had every blueprint, every fail-safe, every backdoor memorized. I had created it as a fortress. Aegis was a house of cards. The first hint of trouble came in a terse text message from my old colleague, Chloe. She had been a junior analyst when I started, and I had mentored her for years. She was smart, quiet, and deeply loyal. The first message came at 3 a.m. and simply said, "Are you awake?" I knew instantly something was wrong. My heart started to race. My phone buzzed again. They can't get the new system to talk to the client network. The authentication is failing. It's a disaster. A third message came through. Simon is losing his mind. He's blaming everyone but his new toy. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I knew the problem. Aegis 7.0 was designed to work in a pristine, theoretical environment. It wasn't built to handle the real-world complexities of our clients' existing networks. My system had been built specifically to do just that. Over the next few days, the text messages from Chloe became more and more frantic. She was trapped in the middle of a collapsing house of cards. 3 of our biggest clients are threatening to pull out. One message read, "The system keeps logging people out randomly. We've lost 2 hours of data. Simon says it's a user-end issue. It wasn't. I knew the problem was at the core of the Aegis platform, a fundamental flaw in its data syncing protocol. The system was designed for flashy reports and marketing brochures, not for real, tangible work. The breaking point came 5 weeks after I was fired. My phone lit up with a series of frantic text messages. Marcus, it's a code red. A massive failure. Our main client, Atlas Group, has lost 6 months of their most crucial data. All their biometric logs, their security audits, their entire threat assessment report gone. The system is just showing a blank screen. The whole company is on fire. You have to help us. The panic was palpable in her words. I knew Atlas Group. They were a high-stakes, high-profile government contractor. Losing their data was more than a technical failure. It was a legal and professional catastrophe. A few minutes later, another message came through, this one from an unknown number. Mr. Thorne, this is Ms. Anya Sharma. I'm the head of strategic partnerships at OmniVision. Our system is experiencing a critical failure. We need your help. The CEO is on her way back from her trip. Can you please call me as soon as possible? We are willing to pay whatever it takes. The words were formal, but the tone was desperate. They had tried everything. They had called the Aegis vendor. The vendor, of course, blamed a user error. They had consulted with other experts. No one could figure it out. They were out of options. They had to come to me. I smiled. A slow, calm smile. The smile of a man who knew he had been right all along. They had fired me because they thought I was obsolete. They had replaced a working, reliable system with a shiny new toy. And now, that shiny new toy had failed, and they had nowhere to turn but to the man they had cast aside. I wasn't just a consultant anymore. I was a lifeline. I was their only hope. My mind started to race, not with panic, but with a quiet, focused resolve. The revenge wasn't going to be about anger. It was going to be about a price. It was going to be about a lesson. It was going to be about getting what I deserved. I picked up my phone, my fingers flying across the keypad. I didn't call them back. I texted back a single, cold, professional message. I'm available for a consultation. My rate is $450 per hour. My work begins when the contract is signed and sent to my email. The contract came within the hour. It was a single, frantic document, signed by Ms. Sharma herself. The panic was evident in the shaky signature. I signed it with a sense of quiet satisfaction, my hands steady. The revenge wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be flashy. It was going to be methodical, professional, and precise. I drove to the OmniVision campus, a feeling of surreal detachment settling over me. It felt like I was returning to a scene of a crime, a place I once called home that was now a hostile territory. The security guards at the front desk, the same ones who had escorted me out, looked at me with a mix of shock and confusion. They were now holding the door for me. The chaos inside the building was palpable. People were running from office to office, their faces pale with worry. Simon Keller was in the middle of it all, his face ashen, his slick suit now wrinkled and stained with sweat. He was yelling into his phone, his voice a high-pitched shriek. He saw me standing there, a calm oasis in a sea of panic. His eyes widened, a look of pure, unadulterated shock crossing his face. He quickly hung up the phone. "Marcus? What are you doing here?" he stammered, his bravado completely gone. I just smiled, a small, knowing smile. "I'm here to fix your problem, Simon. Your problem is my new paycheck." I didn't even look at him as I walked past. I went straight to my old workstation. Miraculously, they hadn't touched it. The monitor was off, but the tower was still there, a silent sentinel waiting for my command. I sat down, my fingers flying over the keys. I logged into my old system with my old credentials, a system that had once been the beating heart of the company, but was now just a forgotten relic. The files were all there, perfectly intact. My backups. Every single piece of data from the past 15 years, meticulously saved on a secure local server that was completely separate from the public-facing cloud. My old system had a failsafe. Simon's didn't. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of focused work. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop. I simply worked. I restored the 6 months of lost data from my backups. I rebuilt the client's threat assessment report from the ground up, using my old system's robust diagnostic tools. I didn't just restore the data. I provided a more comprehensive report than they had ever seen, complete with detailed vulnerability assessments and risk analyses. My old system, the one they called functional, was now saving their entire company. The company's leadership, the CEO, the head of human resources, the partners, they all came to my desk at one point or another, their faces a mix of relief and profound embarrassment. They saw me, sitting there, a ghost of their past, single-handedly solving the crisis. They saw a quiet, methodical man working with an expertise that their flashy new chief product officer couldn't even begin to comprehend. While I worked, I started to dig a little deeper. The company-wide network was, for me, a familiar playground. I had built it, and I knew every single corner of it. I found a hidden email thread buried deep in Simon's archived files. It was an exchange between him and the vendor of Aegis 7.0. The subject line was commission and bonuses. The emails were a damning chronicle of his deal with them. He wasn't just a slick salesman. He was a fraud. He had received a 12% commission, a hefty sum, for pushing the Aegis deal through. He had sold the company a flawed product, not because he believed in it, but because he stood to make a fortune off of it. He had sacrificed my legacy, the company's stability, and the client's trust, all for his own personal gain. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I finished my work. I had not only restored the data and the reports, but I had also built a new, simplified interface that would allow the company to use my old system on a temporary basis until they found a suitable replacement. I had solved the problem, and I had done it in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost that their new system would have required. I looked at my completed work, at the massive stack of reports, at the perfectly restored data, and I felt a sense of vindication so profound, so complete, that it was almost overwhelming. The CEO, a woman named Ms. Henderson, came to my desk. She was a no-nonsense woman, a powerful figure in the industry. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of respect. "Marcus," she said, her voice low and serious, "you have saved this company. We owe you a debt of gratitude we can never repay." I looked at her, and then I looked at Simon, who was standing a few feet away, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pure, unadulterated terror. He knew. He knew that I knew. He knew that his time was up. The time for quiet work was over. It was time for a show. A final, public, and glorious show. I was ready to collect the ultimate payment. The conference room was buzzing with a nervous energy. The entire leadership team was present, the CEO, the partners, the head of human resources, and even a few of the board members. I was there, sitting at the head of the table, a calm presence in a storm of anxiety. Simon was there too, sitting in a corner, his face a mask of simmering rage and abject fear. He had been told I was giving a report, but he didn't know what kind. I had all my data on a hard drive, the evidence a silent ticking time bomb. I began my presentation, not with a flourish, but with a quiet, professional tone. I've been asked to provide a comprehensive report on the security vulnerabilities of the Aegis 7.0 system and the subsequent data loss, I said. My report is based on my findings over the last 2 days, and it's quite extensive. I began with a detailed technical breakdown of Aegis 7.0's flaws. I explained its shoddy architecture, its black box approach, and its critical data syncing failures. I spoke with the calm authority of a man who knows his subject better than anyone in the room. I showed them my reports, the data I had restored, and the solutions I had implemented. My presentation wasn't a lecture. It was an autopsy. The partners listened, their faces growing grim. Ms. Henderson, the CEO, sat forward, her expression a mix of awe and disappointment. I could see them connecting the dots, realizing that the new flashy system they had invested millions in was nothing more than a dangerous, untested toy. Then, I moved on to the final slide. I put it on the screen, a simple title in bold letters. The true cost of Aegis 7.0. I turned to the audience and said, the flaws in this system were not just technical. They were ethical. I found something on the company network that I believe you all need to see. I brought up the email chain between Simon and the Aegis 7.0 vendor. The messages were plain, simple, and utterly damning. The dates, the times, the names, it was all there. I highlighted the final message from the vendor, which confirmed a 12% commission payment to Simon for facilitating the deal. The silence in the room was deafening. Every eye in the room turned to Simon. His face went from pale to a ghastly shade of green. His jaw dropped. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a raw, desperate kind of terror. He opened his mouth to say something, to deny it, but no words came out. The air was thick with the weight of the truth. Ms. Henderson stood up, her eyes blazing with fury. "Simon, my office. Now." Her voice was cold, sharp, and final. He stood up, his legs shaking. He didn't even look at me. He just walked out of the room, a ghost of his former self. His reign was over. His fraud had been exposed. The room erupted. People were speaking in hushed, angry whispers. I sat there, a silent observer. My work was done. A few minutes later, Ms. Henderson returned, her face set in a grim expression. "Effective immediately, Simon Keller has been terminated. He will be facing criminal charges for fraud. And as for you, Marcus." She looked at me, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "You have saved this company. We owe you everything. We'd like to offer you a full-time position as Director of Systems Innovation. We'll give you a blank check. You can have whatever you want. We need you." I smiled, but I shook my head. "Ms. Henderson, I appreciate the offer. But my days of working for someone else are over. I've found that I prefer working for myself. I prefer building things to last. But," I added, "I am willing to offer you a new kind of deal." I laid out my terms. A retainer agreement at a rate of $600 per hour with a guaranteed minimum of 15 hours per month. My services were not to be a full-time job, but a lifeline, a safety net for the systems I had built and the ones they were still trying to fix. I would be their private consultant, their ghost in the machine, and they would pay me handsomely for my expertise. They didn't hesitate. They signed the contract right there, and then I had won. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. I had been fired, dismissed, and ridiculed for my dedication to a system that worked. I had been replaced by a fraud with a flashy toy. And in the end, it was my quiet integrity that had triumphed. I left the conference room and walked back to my old desk. I saw Chloe smiling at me, her eyes filled with pride. I packed up my remaining things, the few personal items they hadn't put in the box. I looked at my old workstation, a silent monument to a time that was now over. I was a free man. I was an independent consultant. I was my own boss. And every day, I would get paid to be the best at what I do, with no corporate politics, no phony titles, and no one to tell me my work wasn't good enough. I walked out of OmniVision for the final time, the weight of a 15-year legacy, now a quiet, powerful vindication. I hadn't just gotten my job back. I had gotten my life back. And that was the greatest victory of all. Thanks for watching. I can't grow this channel without you. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and join me in building a space where justice and payback always win.